our viewers who are here and local and international. Reverend Dr. Works has been a member of the Church of God of Prophecy for over 38 years and has served in various capacities at the local, parish and national levels. She has been serving as the pastor for the Glengough Church of God of Prophecy for over 20 years. She also served as Director, National Christian Ministry, Christian Education, member of the Ministerial Review Board, member of the National Administrative Committee, Parish Counseling Ministry Coordinator, and Parish Youth Ministry Coordinator, Parish Women's Ministry Director, Parish Pastoral Care Director. Reverend Works is a Marriage Officer and Justice of the Peace. Reverend Works, as a professional, has been a lecturer at the Jamaican Theological Seminary for over 10 years. At present, she heads the Behavioral and Social Sciences Department at the said institution. She had also served as a lecturer and principal at the Leadership Development Institute and counselor at the Family Life Ministry for over 14 years. She's a trained teacher who has given 34 years of dedicated service in the field of education. Put your hands together for her. Dr. Burke is a graduate of the Columbia Theological Seminary in Atlanta, Georgia, with a doctorate in philosophy. She also holds a Master's of Arts degree in Counseling Psychology from the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, a bachelor's degree in counseling from Jamaica Theological Seminary, and a diploma in teaching from the Shorten Teachers College. Reverend Work has been happily married for 37 years and is a proud mother of 6 children, 5 boys and 1 girl. She's a preacher, teacher, administrator, and counselor whose philosophy is, my life should touch others in a positive way. Gentlemen, let's welcome.
Amen. That's me. And there was a time I would not have allowed an introduction like that, but I've learned to be proud of me. From where I started and what the Lord has done through me, within me, and I am grateful to God for it. Right? And I like to share it also because I give people hope. Right? And I say my life should touch others in a positive way. I can just go through and tick what Carla's already gone through. But I'm just going to be more practical as I look at the different areas because you don't want to repeat, right? And persons tell me that although I don't love to go on air like Carla, but we have the same kind of presentation style and so forth. So I don't want to give you a repeat of what Carla did. But a topic I want to start off, sort of a discussion is, you are who you are today because of socialization or re-socialization, as men who are called to lead today. And if you have been given the mandate to lead the men in the Church of God of Prophecy, it's a great mandate. Because if you look at the situation in our church today, we have to make sure that a paradigm is shifted. Okay? Some of you were born in the church, you don't know any other life. In fact, some of you were born in the church, and so these men that are now coming, you don't even know how to minister to them because you are not able to identify where they are coming from. Okay? But there are some of you who you had to be re-socialized by the church. In fact, you had to be brought to a place where you had an encounter with the Holy Spirit, right? Before you could be where you are. And you made some mistakes along the way. You made some mistakes you can't share. They're not for airplay. Okay? In fact, there are some of you who you had the kind of guidance, male guidance that you needed in the church. The mistakes you made, you would not have made them. Okay? And so I give God thanks for Brother Brown, and the ministry is now leading to sort of sensitize men as to what man really needs. And believe me, the Lord has not made a mistake in allowing Carla to come this morning. In fact, Brother Brown called me last night, are you ready? And I said, you want to tell me not to come? Because I really, really was not ready. So I had to really sit down with the Holy Spirit and say, we're next. Okay? Because Carla mentioned the fact that the Jamaican man is drawn from what we call a plantation society. You have to first understand the men that you are called to lead before you can minister to them. Yes. Right? And so I want for us to look at, when we talk about them being drawn from a plantation society, what are we talking about? What is the plantation society? Right? Jamaica is a young country, you know. Right? And remember that we were a colony. We were a plantation society. Our forefathers were slaves. Okay? What are the features of this society? Matrifocal family structure. Women lead the homes. In fact, women, even when the men were present, the women still led the homes. In fact, the men gave the leadership to women. When you look in a home, for instance, the man will tell you, go into your mother room, you see something on her dresser. Okay? So even in his house, he don't even have a room. Okay? And so the men themselves, and you heard Bishop speak a while ago, they give the woman the authority. You see what I mean? And so we have one of the features of the plantation society is women run things. Women are the ones. Yes, Brother Millwood?
The only thing the women don't own in the house is the toilet.
The
only thing that the women don't actually own in the house is the toilet.
we can discuss that later on, right? Definitely. All right? And so we have a matrifocal family structure. And I heard Bishop speak about the fact that they can't find male ministers. And I tell them why. Because the woman on the plantation, coming out of the plantation society system, women learn to be leaders. We learn to manage the homes. We need to bend our hands and make fashion. We learn to balance things. We learn to fix things and put things in order when it needs to be put in order. And now we come to church and give us that role again. And so the church strengthened our role as women, right? And it's just recent we have a men's ministry in Jamaica, right? Because remember we had a women's ministry coming out of our church, has its head office in US. They never had a plantation culture and men struggling to lead, right? Because they had a women's ministries, we put in one too. Well, what we really needed then was a men's ministry, okay? So it is matrifocal. She mentioned also male marginalization, right? She mentioned male academic underachievement, and she also mentioned the whole enhanced sexual activity coming out of the plantation society. When we talk about male marginalization, we're talking about men being marginalized along education lines, in families and so forth. If you look in what Bishop mentioned, the statistics in school. If you look at the statistics coming out of the colleges and universities, you're going to find that it's the women who are graduating with the degrees predominantly. Okay? If you look in even our high school system, the newly upgraded high schools, did you know those schools that were classified as failing schools, did you know that predominantly is a male population? Yeah. Huh? Because in those schools now, the boys who are underachievers, that is where they normally go. Few girls are in those schools. It's predominantly females. Okay? And so when we think along the education line, women are the ones who were allowed to really go on to do education. So the men were underachievers, and they were allowed to be. And of course, one feature of the plantation society also is the over-sexual activity, where you know that the men were supposed to be studs. And so in order to produce more slaves, they had to have impregnate women all about the place. And the more women you got pregnant is the more important you are, you see, because you were providing slaves. And so they developed this whole sexual aptitude where they were all over and plant seeds and just add sex about the place, right? And of course, I said, the church supported this culture, you know. We're always bigging up women, right? And so, thank you, Brother Brown, and men who are now building up men to know that we need some men to really take over, right? And I believe in a man and a woman leading. I don't think that there's any over the other. I think we have great female leaders. I think we have great male leaders. What I think we need is a balance in the church where the men learn to be men and stand as men in the church. Okay? But as we look at the male population today, and we look at the plantation society, what features do we see still evident in our society today coming out of plantation life? We still see the warp families. Don't we still see women heading quite a number for households? Yeah. So we are considered to be matrifocal. And so if the men that are being brought up, they are being socialized by women. So women are important. You want a man to kill you? Tell him about him, mama. Am I right, men, or am I right? You want a man kill you in Jamaica, just tell him negative things about him, mother. Right? And so men support their mothers. Mothers are important in our culture, right? And so the men were taken away from their family all the time. I will still find them, although we're not grabbing them away. The rum bar is still pulling them, don't? They go one by nights, right? Man, I want you to listen and understand, because we're going out there. I'm going to try to be more practical in that you are now going out there in a ministry where we're going to put programs in place to build men. Okay? There's a scripture that we read on Mother's Day that I don't subscribe to in a Jamaican context, and I must tell you. Who can find the virtuous woman? She works and she takes care of her children, and she cooks and she cleans and she does everything. And her husband looks at her, and the men in the gates look at her and think she's great. She's the best thing that ever happened, right? When I put that woman in the Jamaican culture, I'm going to tell you what I see. I see a woman who breeds a lazy man. So she stays home, cook, clean, wash, work and mind him, and him go to a road to play domino. Because that is what we look at the gates. Sir. And so when I use that scripture, I make sure to put it in the culture that it was created. Because if we look at it literally, it cannot be used in Jamaica. We're going to breed lazy men. The women stay home, cook, clean, wash, and work the money and bring it in, and him go play domino, and she giving him cigarette money and him liquor money to go buy a drink for him friends them. Okay? And we see that evident in our culture, don't we? All right. So we need to change all of that. All right, let us look at the contemporary society. I know because you had two speakers, we're pressing for time, so if I'm going a little fast, take time with me, right? The contemporary society, sex saturated. Am I right or am I right? If you look at the television, and even if they are advertising onions, right? Some sexual innuendos have to be in place, right? Musical entertainment drawn from our African culture. Okay? Because we love music, don't it? As we hear a little pan, I tell my young men that they are going to be deaf shortly. Why? Everybody has a Walkman, and they are listening to music. Okay? And it is going to affect the ear sometime to come, right? We're going to be having a deaf society. So we are musically inclined, okay? The reality is, the men that you are searching for, they are outside in the gates, playing dominoes, sipping their little drink, interacting with their peers. Are those the men you are looking for? That's where they are, so that is what we are pulling them from. So we go out there and we pull them in to come in. Being accustomed to them whole for sex, being accustomed to their music, being accustomed to the little games with their peers and so forth. Those are our target group, those are the men we got to win, And we bring them into church now. We bring them into church now and we put them to sit down. Listen to clapping and singing, and women crying and women doing all of those things. And they cannot really identify with the culture that they were plunged into. Okay? So there's a major shift for most men, not like most of you that were born in the church. I'm talking about the man that is out there we really want, because most of them, that is where they are. So we bring them into the church now, and there's a major shift to the lifestyle that they're accustomed to. And our aim now is to bring them like you, where they have an encounter with God, where even if the music not playing, where they're not so much focused on the sex, they can now grow in the Lord. So we have to bring them, taking them out of that setting, we have to now bring them like you. Not that you don't still have these needs, but because of your encounter with the Holy Spirit, though you can now kind of actually balance those things and put them in perspective and so forth. So that's where we aim to bring them. Okay? So access to peers is now limited. I shared with you that, and can I confess to you, men, that when I was preparing this presentation this morning, Brother Brown, I felt so guilty. You know why? With my sociological training, and my psychological training, and my theological training, I was plunged into pastoral work, and I brought all of that to ministry when I came. Within the first year of my being appointed as pastor, I baptized 114 persons in Glencoe, Right? And I mean, they were young men. Young men. I had a male choir of something like 25. Young men. You see what I mean? And when I was now made to draw back on my training, and draw back on what I did in those days to win the men and to keep them, I was beginning to feel so guilty. Believe me, that I think I want to share this with you today. Because I have so many responsibilities, and I tell people that before I became a pastor, I was more effective at soul winning. Now with the whole pastoral responsibilities and the administrative duties, and you can't find people to do this and do that, I have to be filling in all of those areas. I think I now need to go back to being that person as well as being the pastor. Okay? The reality is, I shared with you earlier on about the fact that when my parish needed a pastor, I have one pastor, and I give them a young man. So I was able to give Bishop 3 pastors from my local church within 5 years of me being a pastor. Right? I have 2 now also pastoring abroad. Okay? But what I find is that although I win men, those men that I win don't replicate themselves. And so I am finding that there is something else that I now need to do. And so I use my knowledge, my sociological background and all of that to sort of win men. But I now find that I need to do what Brother Brown is doing. Sit them down and say, you need to make over yourself. You see what I mean? So each of you now need to make over yourself. When I went to lecture in the seminary, I thought I was doing a better job than just being the pastor. You know why? I was training persons to now go out there, right? And train others to win people to minister. So in the seminary, by touching one, I was touching 100. So when I train one of you and send you out now, you go out there to touch 100. So I find that I am more effective. And so I am finding that although I have been instrumental in breeding these male ministers, right? I have not gone to the depth of what Brother Brown is doing now, teaching them to replicate themselves. So I still have to be winning more all the time, and those not replicating themselves. Because if they were doing that, the church would have been filled with men today. So they just come in and get comfortable. Why? Because we have not provided a program like this to teach them how to be men in the church and to teach them to bring in other men in the church. You see what I mean? Lord of mercy. Sometimes, can I tell you that sometimes we just need to close the Bible and be practical? Look at our cultural context in which your church is placed. Look at what is happening in your, do a needs assessment in your community, because you're going to leave here today. Because I'm trying to kind of cut things so as not to go along the route that Carla went, right? Because I want for you to be practical. When you leave here today, you are going to be taking, because you're parish directors, you are going to be taking your local directors, teaching them how to do a needs assessment in their community. Okay? What does the community need? Where are the men in the community? What should we be doing now to go and get them? And getting them is important, you know. But you need to go and do, even before they come, you need to now sit down and say, now when they come, what are we going to be doing to keep them? And the culture from which they are coming, their socio-cultural background is going to be important. Even before you win them, you know. Right? Because when they come, you know, have to be prepared for them. One of the problems we're having is that we win them, but we are not prepared for them. Right? Yeah. I remember winning a young man once, because I'm a soul winner, you know. I'm a soul winner. And I remember winning a young man when I was youth director. One of those guys, you know, those hardcore guys in the street, man, drink and them girls and them liquor and everything, you know. And he came and one night as youth director, I decided for us to just have a little male talk. And I find that when the male talk is to go on this meeting, they want to talk to them, you know. Right? So I met with the males, and pastor was there. And one of the young men said, boy, Sister Works, your church thing are rough, you know, man. Call me shoot the bishop last night. Here, pastor, they didn't dead? you see what I mean? And when they fling things like that at you, are you prepared to just walk them through it and tell them, say, natural? You see? Because when I explained to pastor said, but brother, you need to pray hard, let God take it from you. God have to take what that nature from you, brother. God has to, you see? Right? And I had to call the young man one side so as not to disrespect pastor. I said, don't beg God take it from you. Because if God ever take it from you, when you get married, may God help you. You see what I mean? So ask the Lord to help you to control it. And I was able to sit with him and help him to understand that it's a natural part of who man is. Right? And so we must be prepared to be open and discuss these things with them as they come. All right? So coming to church is a major shift. Access to peers, limited. And the first thing we need to do when we get these men, is to a mentor for them. And the mentor must be prepared to go into all of these areas of concerns that they have. So you go out there, you tell your directors, listen to me, we are going to be direct now. We are going to put a concerted effort into winning our men. But because we win them, you know, we just don't keep them. Okay? And so when they come now, before they come, the first thing you need to do is to start a mentoring program. So the first thing you are going to do in preparation for them coming is to train some mentors in the church. And in training the mentors, you look at your sociological context. Your area might be different from yours. The needs in your local moment may be different from the need in yours. So look at what is happening in your community and see what you need. How you need to train the mentors. And if you don't have it, bring in people. Our church is packed with resources, you know. We have qualified people, you don't even have to go outside. And if you can't find it here, you'll find it in the church, because we're not the church that used to say that we are the only church going to heaven, right? One of my older brethren shared something with me, where the reason why we are so delayed in finishing our buildings is that because we thought we were the only church, and the other churches had some big pretty buildings. One day we are going to get them, because they'll come to us, so we'll just move to their pretty building, so we don't build it for ourselves, right? But we don't believe that anymore. We can draw on resources outside of our church. All we need to do is check their doctrine, right? And make sure that they measure up with what we believe, right? And so we have to gradually use the culture that they are coming from somewhat, in order to prepare them to get into that encounter with God. Because when they come into the encounter, it's not that they won't backslide, but it is easier for them to adjust and remain faithful to the church. We ought also to create and facilitate activities that allow for them to meet people. So you get this young man out there, you bring him in and baptize him, and that's where he is. No, he's coming from a social environment when he used to meet with him friends and play like a dominoes and so forth. And so you have to gradually you have to have persons there who are ready to work with him. That's where we're going wrong, you know. We bring them in, but we don't have the programs to keep them. So get the mentor prepared. Make sure the men's ministry is so functioning that you have this committee that is responsible for games, this committee that is responsible for that, and so you keep them occupied. Don't allow them mind for 1 minute get bored to the point where they want to go back. So you have activities so occupied. Have them so occupied with the activities that you plan for them. You see, we have to take evangelism a step further. So we can't just go out, you know, and plan crusades without purpose. The preparation time is much greater than even the time that we have the crusade. So by the time the crusade ends, you should have had things so organized, right? That when they come, you have everything ready. Okay? And hear me, train some men to deal with them. Not every woman is like me that will not shy away, right? And will allow man to be man. I will not shy away from particular issues that they have. Some women are not really comfortable working with certain male issues. And to be truthful, can you imagine getting a young man come in the church and his mentor is another woman who has similar issues, and you're putting them together, you know that they can be drawn together out of turn, not true? And so you must be prepared to train some men. And hear me, if it's 5 men you have, make sure you train the 5 men. Amen. Right? But if you have to get outside help, get outside help. So if you're over in Westchester, call over Glengolf. If you're over somewhere in Portland, call somebody over St. Mary. I need help over here. That is the way our church is structured. You know? The Church of God of Prophecy has one of the best structures that I know. I can leave church for 1 month and church still go on. Because of the structure that we have. Isn't it a good structure that we have? So let us make use of this structure. And if I can't find anybody in Glengolf, guess what? We have a parish structure and we have a national structure. We have a very good structure. And so let us use up the structure that we have. So if we don't have the expertise at our local level, we can find it at the parish level or the national level. Or just call Brother Brown and he can recommend somebody from another church that don't save like us. Right? That he knows is saved. Should I have said that? All right. We are to facilitate learning and self-improvement activities. Hear me. If We are saying that the women are the one going to colleges and universities. Right? Don't you see that the women appear to be out of the reach of the men? Answer me now. Yes. So the man feels that she's out of his reach. And she feels that he cannot come up to her standard. Okay? Not necessarily true, you know. Not necessarily true. My husband does not have not even a quarter of my qualification. You believe that? I have how many degrees? Only. And my husband just barely leave high school. And every time I finish one degree, he said, when you're doing the other one? Every time I graduate, my husband graduate too, you know. Yes. You know that? Yes. Because I remember when I was doing my final degree and going to school at nights, right? Every night he'd be outside waiting until I done, right? So when I graduate, it's a tour we get the degree, you know. So I graduate and him graduate too. Why? Because I did not allow for him to feel in fear. Me trace him saying, what let's say you're not going to study to go and go study for me and you. Right? And the reality is, you see, if you go to my husband right now, the big paper to sign, him say, wait till my wife come me educate her for that. You see? So he's going to tell you that I can read the word them, but she can read between the line them. You see what I mean? And him don't have no ambition. He tells people that without fear or favor. Him out of the word you don't sit down waiting on me, you know, because everywhere me them just they back at me. You understand what I'm saying? But the reality is, we are to facilitate their training, and we are to facilitate self-improvement activities. When I talk about facilitating their training, Carla dealt with that. I'm not going into it in details. But men want to earn money. Okay? Men don't want to just left their job and go to school. Who man will do that? Not man. Okay? The man wants to know that he is holding his money. And so you as the leader now need to do the research to help him to understand how he can still go to school while earning. So you know all the evening schools that are held. You know all the training programs that are going on. And so you must be equipped with that knowledge so they can build themselves up to a level where they can be marketable to any woman. You hear that? And hear me, it does not have to be a degree. My grandfather says study, ration, peat, education. Right? He can have a skill that he earns even much more than the person who graduates with their doctors and them masters and what have you. And so you have to be a step ahead of the people that you lead. You must have the knowledge. So you are going to, you see, sometimes you look at some persons, even some of you sitting here before me. You know why you're not lawyer, doctor, Indian and chief? Opportunity. Some of you. If you only had the opportunity, okay, you would be the doctor standing up here. So some of you, the parents never push you enough, or the money was not there, and parents did not even know the value of education. See what I mean? And when you identify among those young men, some men who have certain capabilities, but for either of these reasons, they did not make it to a particular place, what they can do, you know who just have to do a skill, you know who can go further in the educational field and so. So know them. And the mentoring program helps you to identify that as well. Know them and you be always be a step ahead of the persons that you lead, right? So that you are sort of a resource person where you can now point them in a particular direction and say you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. Right? So that they do not turn up in church now with self-esteem issues where they feel like everybody else is better than them. Because the Jamaican man in the church struggle with serious self-esteem issues. And in helping them along this vein, you build their self-esteem and allow them to be on par with the ladies in the church and other persons. All right. Men are action-oriented. Huh? And so whenever you're planning your activities for men, make it action-packed. In fact, you can achieve the same thing if them sitting over a domino table. So while them knocking two domino, you're talking the same things to them. You didn't know that? While them kicking a ball or pushing a load thing, You can be saying the same thing to them. They are action-oriented. And we need to know this about our men, that they are action-oriented. We are sending you back now to go plan some programs for your church, you know. Right? Men are action-oriented. Okay? Am I right? Because I'm talking to men, you know. I'm talking to men. Don't the same men who cannot sit down under a 1 hour sermon, sit down and watch a movie for 3 hours? Huh? Maybe more to us. Huh? The same man. Give him a 40-minute message and him fall asleep on you. And him sit down and him watch a movie for 3 hours. Right? Or a cricket match or a football match for 3 hours. So why can't we use that aspect of man and plan our programs in such a way that we make use of his action-oriented nature? And I leave that to your imagination, because the fact that you're parish directors, you are no fools. And the Holy Spirit will also guide you. All right? Go and plan your programs. All right. I'm trying to go through quickly. What should a man's program look like? And the first thing you need to understand is that you need to have a plan for them. And the plan must not only be in your head. You must share the plan with them. This is what we are going to be doing. And not only that, make them a part of the plan. How do you know what they need? So when you sit down to plan your men activities, call them in and say, where are we falling short? What do you think you'd want for us to do? Make them a part of the plan. Because you see, if you make them a part of it, they buy into it, you know. I share a secret with you. You see, when I have meetings, I go there what I want long time, you know. But when I don't ask you, what do you think? And what do you think? And what do you think? And them coming in my direction, you know. But guess what? They were there, and I don't make it look like it was my idea. I involve them in the discussion. Make them a part of it, because when they feel a part of it and buy into it, guess what? Sometimes you just sit down and watch the plan rolling. They just take it because it is their plan. So when you plan activities for them, make them a part of the plan, because they don't want for you to look down on them and believe that they are fools. Try not to go back over the first presentation. Right? Be deliberate in ensuring that you have man's time. Right? I hope you recognize what repetition that is taking place. Eh? A man time is man time. So don't be quarrel about we have men's ministry and the woman them don't come. It wasn't for them. Okay? And although we invite the women sometimes out to the men's program, there we must be deliberate sometimes in just planning some men's program where them talk man things, and you talk man things to them outside of the woman. Okay? And so have some sessions where you are going to meet, and so if you know that men's ministry is held on a Tuesday night and the women normally turn up, call a men's meeting for Friday evening. I just want to meet with all the men. And you sit down with the men, hear them heart, allow them to share, and allow men to be men and men to feel as if they are important. Because even as men, you say men, you don't give me the level of importance that is needed in the church, you know. Because remember that the plantation society system that we're a part of has already undermined their self-esteem, you know. So you have the task of building that self-esteem and helping them to feel important. All right. The plan should also cater to the different male categories. So you have married men in there, you have single men, and by the way, single men include divorced people too, and widowed people. Because we tend to have single things for them and forget that the widow and the divorcee has also become single. Right? We have teens, we have persons of different educational level, okay? And we need to train male members to mentor male members. All right. Now, if we're talking about, we're going to mentor to married men, for instance. One of the courses I lecture at the seminar is human sexuality, right? The female anatomy is so much different from the male anatomy, sexual anatomy. The female anatomy is more complicated, you know. You wonder why we say that men come like light bulb, we just turn them on and then turn on. And as you turn off the light gone. But the women are like electric irons, where you plug it in, and it takes time to heat up. And you have to plug it up. When you plug it out, it hot same way. You see what I mean? And it takes time to cool down. And so, some marriages are struggling because married men don't know how to satisfy their wives. Them not understand the female anatomy. And no, so they can't just go and slam bam, thank you, ma'am. Because them all right, you know. But when them done, the wife will look and say, oh, we're just too loud. You see what I mean? And so you have to have sessions with married men because some of them really don't know. And men, let us be realistic. Right? Some of the choir member, they will come sit down and the choir sing like angel. You see, they have extramarital affair because we are sexual beings and that part of us need to be satisfied. Amen. And unless God turn up in us some woman, may God help some of the men. Okay? True. And so we need, we can't just have the, you think I could open up this now to single men? Yeah. Huh? I do it with single men who are in ministry because they need to learn to work with persons whether or not they are married. Because a single man might be called to be a pastor. And when they have sexual problems, what do? When the members have sexual problems, you might not have it practically, but you have it theoretically. And if you have a teacher like me, when they don't leg out the theory, them think it practical. You see what I mean? And so you have to teach them. And so even your leaders that you have, sometimes you need to call in a woman like me and say, listen to me, let us teach these men how to guide married men into having wholesome relationships. Okay? Amen. Sorry if I backslide today. I'm just being practical, right?
No, that was a forward slide.
Huh?
That was not backslide. Forward slide.
She dealt with all of this area. All right. Single men. Okay? The single men in the church. You think it easy? I was at a deliverance service once, right? Nice, decent brother in the church, you know. One of my top brothers in the church, you know. Doing a deliverance, right? Somebody was seriously demon possessed, and I mean he was there doing the deliverance, man. Getting there, man, and making headways. And in the middle of me, so the brother just jump up, so. What's wrong with your brother? Pastor? I just see one of the prettiest pair of buttocks that ever make. You see, while he was there doing the deliverance, that's how the devil use it, you know. Yeah. One little sister just come jump front of him helping with the deliverance. It caught the spirit same place. He said, Pastor, it's the prettiest buttocks I ever see. You see what I mean? The thing is this, you know. It is a reality. It is reality. Right? And so we need to look at topics like courtship, dating, dealing with your sexuality, because it is real. That's how God made them. And you know that men are visual. Them see things and it affects them. How do we plan programs to guide our single men out of this? Because the minute they get caught somewhere, guilt sometimes they don't bother come back to church. Did you hear me? Yes. And so them slide as a result of how they are made up. And them so guilty, them feel like God don't want them anymore, they don't bother come back. So we have to have what I call now our, what the team name? Response team. Okay? Well, we have our response team where we see the brother backsliding. And you say you people who mentor them, tell them where you fall short and how God help you. Amen. Tell them the struggle, because we can't be mentors and present ourselves as superheroes. As if we don't have these struggles too. Amen. Tell them how you feel. Amen. Tell them how you see the girl at the whole night you couldn't sleep. Come as John turn up on you the whole night you couldn't sleep. Tell them. You see what I mean? And you're not going to ask God to take it away from you. You're just going to beg God put it under control from your God until. Yes. You see? And so be practical. Share with them openly. And so even in training persons to be mentors, the first thing you need to do is to deal with yourself. Yeah. Leaders, you see, as you have been called to leadership, the first thing you do is to have a setting with yourself, or a sitting with yourself. What can you cope with, what you can't cope with? Amen. What you need to overcome. Because some of us as leaders have some things that we have to overcome first. Amen. You see? And so we need to sit And if there are issues that we are not dealing with, we need to get help with it before we present ourselves out there. Right? I know in my profession, the counseling profession, because I lecture in a seminary where I do the counseling program. And our students, even before we send them on practicum, they have to get personal therapy. So that they can identify any issues they have, right, that can mitigate against them, working with the clients out there in the field. So even as leaders, we need to search ourselves. And if we need help, get help so that we can be effective in helping the persons out there that we serve. All right? Hush. I'm trying to breeze by. Okay? The teens have a different story. And hear me. Quite a number. Look at the statistics in the church, and you're going to find in your local church that there's a particular gap in a particular age group. Right? And so we win them as children. And if we can keep them throughout the teenage years, it is highly likely that we'll keep them into adulthood. If they can remain in the church throughout the teenage and going into the young adulthood age, we have mastered a great battle. You know what I mean? And so we have to be direct in planning teens programs. As they come, listen to me, let me look at the teenager. The teenager is facing several changes in their life. Right as them entering into teenage, them enter high school. At primary school, they're accustomed to one teacher teaching them everything. They will plunge them into a system where they have 13 teachers. Sometimes they don't know where one begins from when one ends. Coupled to that, sometimes they have to be traveling further now to go to school, because in the primary school they could just walk to school or so forth. They have to be taking bus now and going far. Coupled with that, guess what? The body begin to give them some signals that they're not accustomed to. You see what I mean? Cause them find say, and the voice I get, and Master Jana give me more signal. You see what I mean? And so with all of those changes, it is a stage of confusion for the teenager. So we need to have direct teens programs where we prepare them for the changes that are taking place. And guess what? The church is the common denominator. So before all of this was happening, they had the church. And while all of it is still happening, they still have the church. So the church is the common denominator that they have in all of this. Because the church has not changed. So school has changed. School environment has changed. Church has not changed. So we are the one thing that they're accustomed to. And so we need to mentor them during that time, have a direct program for them, and mentor them in that time. They are the ones that are going to come up to be the leaders of tomorrow. They are the ones that are going to keep the church afloat. And so if they can come through that mad stage, guess what? The church would have been safe. So a program for teens is very important. And so, Master Brown, let us be direct in getting our men to build up some young male teenagers, right? Who will be setting the foundation to lead the church tomorrow. Okay? Then the educational level, you have to take into consideration the education level of the persons you mentor or the persons you are working with. Okay? So because I'm high flown and I can use all the ologies and the technical terms, that's how I speak. Right? And we lose them. We are Jamaicans. Every Jackman Dora understands Jamaican language. You know that? So you see, we at the same time, we don't want to go down to people so that we have to be building them up. But at the same time, we can't get so high that we lose a set of people all the way. So we need to know how to balance the thing and reason with people at their educational level. Okay? I had a case once, you see, where a man, he traveled on the travel program, work travel program, farm work program. And every time him come to Jamaica, him would line up how much beating him wife you need to get. The wife would write him. Okay? And each time she write him, he reads the letter with the dictionary beside him. And you know that one word can have several meanings. She was more educated than he was. But he could read, but not at her level. So him read the letter with the dictionary beside him. And whenever he goes through that and he see a particular word, he would underline the word and look it up in the dictionary, and it will take out the worst meaning and says that you mean. Right? Thank God for telephone. Then have to write after a while and just talk. You see what I mean? I would get a beating for it. And so we need to, I learned to help her to listen to me. Write simple words. You don't have to use those words. Write simple words and make it short, don't make it long either. As a matter of fact, you will just write and say, thank you for the thing and I love you and I miss you. That thing can't read that, him can't read anything into that. But maybe you want to go into too much explanation and the poor man can't reach at that level. Okay? And so we must take into consideration the programs that we plan, the persons, the men's different educational bit. Man is a shame, you know? You know that man is a shame? Right? And so we throw some questions at them sometime in a way that them cannot even understand it, and them shame and don't come back. Okay? And so plan at their educational level. Right? And I mentioned also train them to work with men. And hear me, church. I see a thing happening in church where I resent it. Oh, my ask me now hug up no man. Because of the whole homosexual thing. Men are afraid to give man a healthy hug in the church. That should not be among the church. Right? Listen to me, and I will talk it anyway. Homosexuality is wrong. And the Church of God of Prophecy teaches against it. Okay? So, brother, I hope you don't have any in here. Because I'm telling you, if you're in here, it's wrong. The Bible teaches against it. The church takes a stand against it. Okay? And hear me. We must feel free as man to just hug one man and get one healthy hug from one man. Okay? But there are some men going to tell you, oh, me don't want a man hug me, you know. Me don't want a man hug me. Right? Listen to me. It is unhealthy. It is unhealthy. And we are to build healthy men in such a way. You go in a church, sometimes just want a man to hug you. Right? The camp program has opened up so much for me. Some men come to camp, you see, and the first thing get one male hug is when a camp person hug them. They're not accustomed to be hugged by a father and really feel love and fellowship of a father. I was in church one Sunday too, and parents were asked to hug their children. And one boy, when his father hugged him, the boy bawled along the whole place at age 16. It's the first thing that they hug him from him born. He cried uncontrollably. He really needed that hug. You see? And so we must create an healthy atmosphere. We can associate with people without adding innuendos and putting meaning to it. A healthy male hug is sometimes good and appropriate, right? Including your financial planning. Teach them how to budget the resources. Teach them how to make some extra money. When you do the needs assessment in your environment or your social area, okay, look what in there can cause you to generate some more funds, right? Do your needs assessment. I said you should be a step ahead. Ask them now, what can you do to earn some money? Is it only poor people at the church attract? Because even if we attract poor people, you know, we must bring people. My pastor always said, God call fool, but him don't keep them. Right? We bring them into an area and we build them in such a way that they know how to make some money. Right? And so we plan programs that will sort of guide them into entrepreneurial skills or something to that effect. Right? Where they know how. So we must have financial plans for them. Right? Talk to them about their sexuality. Men, not afraid to talk about sex with the man them. Tell the persons that you are leading, so don't be afraid to share sex and sexual feeling. Tell them the struggles that you went through. When I got saved and the struggles that I had. Because you know something? They're coming, oh, that is a parish director. Can you imagine when them say at convention? Them see up there so, and them down here so. So you look like, if they want you, they have to take a stick to take you down, because that is how far up you are. Okay? And so, in some instances, they don't see you as being human. So guess what? The struggles that they have, you don't have it. Okay? And so you need to sit down and be hope. That is why I say you must get help for yourself. Because if you have struggles that you have been through, and whenever you're to share it, bring back fear and guilt and those things, it means that you need help. You're not ready for this thing. So deal with yourself, so that when you get somebody to mentor, and this is as the Lord leads. Alright? It is as the Lord leads. Because you just share sometimes as the Lord leads. Okay? in the counseling profession, I will say to my students, listen to me, anything you share with a client, make sure you can go up and see VMTV. Okay? Because whereas when they tell you anything, you can't talk. When you tell them anything, they are not bounded by any code of ethics so them can't go share it. So make sure that when you are now ready to share, it can go up on CVM TV. That when you hear it again, you are not hurt by it, you are not destroyed by it. So you would have dealt with it to the extent that when you share it with them in order to build them, you are comfortable doing it and you will not be damaged by it. Okay? All right? Yeah. Self-esteem builders must be evident. I heard Carla mention the fact that everybody has strengths. Everybody has strengths. You know that? Everybody has some good in them. Identify the strengths that they have and work on it. Big them up, as she mentioned. But you know, you have some people everybody write off. Yes. You know, you win some men, everybody write off. As a matter of fact, when they come to hear that they must baptize church full because they can't believe all him are baptized. And those are the ones that they give 5 days. And 2 weeks, and with a month, then with them back out here. Catch them, you see. Get to know them. Build their self-esteem. Let them feel important in themselves and important in the Lord. Like me. You know, say you don't have no woman beautiful like me? You must be mad, man. No woman no look good like me. I am number one. You see what I mean? And if you don't want to accept it, that's your business. But build a sense of importance in them. So the decision that they have made is a step to betterment. And they must feel that way when you are done with them and your mentoring program, then the church programs that you have. But just know that everybody has a strength. And so when you win those men, you see if you can just identify their strength and big up their strength and make them feel important as a result of the strength that they have, you would have saved one. And you would have helped one to help others because your ministry should be a ripple effect. All right? I'm going to end there because Carla's covered it all. And so what I tried to do was to be more practical in building the church program itself, to cater to men that will not only win them, but keep them. And above all, remember what I said, even before you go for them, set plan for them. Okay? You can't go buy pigeon if you don't have no cage. Okay? So before you go to win them, make sure you have the program in place to keep them. So leave here today going to build your program and be direct in your target group. These are who we are going for. And as a result of who these are and where we're pulling them from, guess this is what we now have to do in order to keep them.